Hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Narconon Scientology Chronicles. I'm Lucas Catton, and I thought I would share the story of how I became a suppressive person, an SP in Scientology parlance, and how I got declared, as they call it. And I wrote about this in my first book about the subject, Have You Told All, and kind of how it came about. And I was living in Clearwater for a while, and things just got absolutely crazy there. Like, people would show up at our house all the time asking for money, and like trying to do things with them was crazy. I was told I needed to redo my Purif, which is their sauna program, and that was BS. And so kind of things came to a head, and it just, things weren't getting any better at all. Like, it was, I had become completely disillusioned during this time. And also I had like, there was information that started to come out too. So like, they sent out the Freedom magazine that had what they call the Posse of Lunatics, and had Marty Rathbun and Mike Rinder and a bunch of other former higher ranking Sea Org officials who had spoken out in the Truth Rundown, the article series in the St. Petersburg Times, which is now the Tampa Bay Times. But so all this stuff started to happen. That was around 2009, and then 2010, and it kept building. And then I saw like Jenna Miscavige Hill. I saw where she had an interview on Nightline, for example, which had happened previously, but then I just saw it. And then there was Christy Colbrin, who's now married to Mike Rinder. Her story was in the New York Times, and then was on the Today Show. And so things started to happen. I was like, all right, something's really messed up here. So I refused to go back. I told them, like, F off. I'm not coming back. Something's not right here. And so they would send people over periodically and check, and whatever. I wasn't into it, but yet they still asked for money. And of course I stopped giving it to them at some point. And then there was an opportunity to move away and move back to Oklahoma. And I was like, yes, let's get the hell out of get the hell out of Clearwater. So I moved back to Oklahoma, and I got further into research and, finding lists of names of people who were other high-ranking officials, or people who had reached other high levels in Scientology who have spoken out. I started reading Marty Rathbun's blog at the time. Now, mind you, Marty has since turned back around the other way, and that's a whole other story that you can check out Tony Ortega's site for, or Mike Rinder's. But I started commenting, on an ex-Scientology message board, and started getting involved in this community of people who were speaking out against it. And so eventually I had some correspondence with people back at Flag in Clearwater, and sent this whole long list of people who had been declared suppressive by the church. And I was like, how are these people, suppressive? Like, it doesn't make sense what you're saying when I compare what they're saying, and it seems true what they're saying. So why are they suddenly evil people after all this time? And it still wasn't making sense. So finally, I got called in, and they said, you know what? Let's have a conversation. Why don't you drive back out to Clearwater, and we'll do it. So I did. And I naively thought that I was going to be able to get somewhere in this, that I was going to make some sense with some people, and that I was going to find some answers. And I was asking, where is Rena Weinberg? Which I did the story about Rena Weinberg in a couple videos ago. But that was one of the things too. I was like, where is she? She's disappeared. What's going on? And so that was one of the questions that I had. And so they was like, come on back. You can meet with someone, and we'll address those things. So I drove back. I stayed in a hotel, and they sent out a couple people from what's called the chaplain's office to meet with me. And I kind of went at it with them in a respectful way. I wasn't, mean to them, but I knew when they were lying, and I knew that when they were hiding information. I said, look, this isn't going to work. I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, I've already been in contact with some of these people, and I know they're not evil people. And so that raised huge red flags. Like, oh my gosh, he's been in contact with whomever. So the next day, to my hotel comes a woman named Kathy True. Kathy True if you look her up, she's an infamous OSA representative at Flag. And OSA is the Office of Special Affairs. And that's what people commonly refer to as like their internal spy organization, their dirty tricks office, their PR and legal situation. They're the ones who deal with all of the lawyers and all of the private investigators and things like that. So OSA is like, they're shady. Kathy True shows up at my hotel and she said, all right. And she brought an e-meter, a Scientology e-meter with her. And she was escorted by a young male Scientologist as well. He stayed in the car. She sat down. She said, okay, I'm here to go over some things with you and I'm going to interview you. At the end of this, I will answer your questions. Like first you're going to answer my questions and then I'll answer your questions. So I'm like, whatever, let's do this. So we sit down. I'm then on the meter with her and she's asking me tons of questions and I blurted it all out. I'm like, I got nothing to hide. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm trying to find out answers and somehow I'm being vilified for asking what's going on. And there's nothing actually wrong with that. All I'm seeing is that you're continually covering up things that you've done that other people have tried to expose. That's all I kept getting back from them. So after several hours, like it was like 3 or 4 hours, literally, that I went through this with her, she then had been satisfied that I told her everything that I had to tell her. And so she closes up and starts packing up the meter. I said, wait, now, what about my questions? And she goes, oh, no, you're way too deep for me to, like, I can't trust you. You're too far off the rails. I can't give you the information that you want because you're just going to go tell someone else. You're going to go tell, these other SPs. And I was like, are you kidding me? I just spent 4 hours telling you the truth and trusting you. And you turn around and said, I'm just going to take this information and go use it against you. And that's what she did. So the next night, I was like, all right, I'm going to stay around one more time. But the next night, they set up this secret meeting for me, Kathy True, at the Clearwater Bank building. And I'm sitting there, and if you walk by on the corner of, Fort Harrison and Cleveland Avenue, if you walk by, it says Church of Scientology. It's called the Clearwater Bank building. But you don't ever see anybody go in or out of it. I think they used to have like a cafeteria way behind it or something like that for the Sea Org members. But as far as the front doors, nobody ever goes in and out of it. At least not that I saw when I lived in Clearwater for 2.5 years. And so all of a sudden the door opens and they're like, Luke, come on in. And I walk in and here we are in this lobby of this building that is clearly empty or not used for much. And she comes and sits me down in this little room. And she introduces me to a woman named, she was Kathy True. The other one was Marian Powell. I want to say Karen Powell because that's who signs all the communications to press and stuff like that, Karen Powell. But it's Marian Powell. And I'm not sure the relation. I don't know if they were both married to the same men or if they were somehow actual sisters or what, sister-in-laws. I don't know. But so Marian Powell was a high-ranking Sea Org official with something called the CMO Int, or Commodore's Messengers Organization, which was like, you've got all these, you got Church of Scientology International, you have RTC, which is Religious Technology Center, you have CMO, you have OSA, you have all these like top-level organizations in their whole grand scheme of things. So Marian Powell sits down with me and we have it out. And she basically tells me, she says, look, you're too valuable for us to lose. But if you don't want to lose everything from what you've gained with us now, you're going to start cooperating right now. And she threatened me and said, you know what happens when people get declared, they lose all their friends and family. That was very obvious, and that was what was hanging over my head at the time. And she's like, you're going to start right now. So here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to issue an official declare order on you, but you are verbally declared right now, which in itself is actually against their own rules, but whatever. So she verbally declared me on the spot. We had to start working through what are called steps A to E, which is a list of things that Hubbard makes people do to try and get back into good graces with the church. And they start making it happen right there. I have to immediately write some notice saying that I denounce all my previous efforts of, finding out truth, and that I realize that the church is good, and is all like under duress at the moment. And so then they said, well, you also need to buy these booklets. You need to make a donation. We're going to have this other guy go out and hand out these booklets, but he doesn't have money to buy them. He'll hand them out, but you buy them. So then I bought a stack of booklets for him. And then, we're going through all this stuff. And so then they send me on my way. They said, we're going to keep this, like, you're only going to keep in contact with us. We're not going to keep in contact with anybody at Flag or anybody anywhere else, just us, and we'll get through this. So I go back to Oklahoma, and thinking that, somehow, I don't know, that I was going to still get to the bottom of things. I went back online and was reading and commenting and doing stuff again. And finally I was like, you know what? This is complete bullshit. Like, this is so stupid. And I was thinking that there's still someone in the organization at the time who had some sense. I still didn't grasp the full craziness of it. I thought that there had to be somebody at the top who could sort all this mess out, and who had to help figure things out. And so I demanded what's called a committee of evidence. I was like, this is bullshit. I'm not doing a verbal declare A to E program. I'm going to have what's due to me in a committee of evidence. So I got one scheduled at Flag, and I drove back to Flag, and I had my committee of evidence, and they read their list of charges against me. And I told them, what I did and didn't do and all that stuff. And I thought, well, surely these guys are going to see that, I have good intentions here. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm trying to just get to the bottom of some questions, and nobody's answering my questions. The only people who are people who they've also declared, or people who were, quote unquote, under the radar, meaning they haven't yet made their name known to church officials, but yet they're out there commenting and doing stuff too. So months go by after that. I'm thinking, hey, I already did my COMEV, as they called it. I already did my COMEV. Like, they must have seen the truth. There was no action. They're supposed to issue a response within 7 days. No response, nothing going on. So I went about my business, and I started doing a video. And it was actually a DVD that I'll do I'll do a different video on that, where in some of that DVD, some of that video that I was doing, I interviewed some other Scientologists, and they're like, hey, what's your status lately? I was like, I don't know. I went out and did my COMEV. I told them the truth. I think everything's all good. They go, huh, okay. So later that summer, lo and behold, I was visiting Clearwater, and I get called into what's called the Flag Justice Chief's office. And this young girl, Kara Golashevsky, called me into this little side building, and she said, here, I'm going to hand you something. You need to read this. And I read it, and it was my being declared a suppressive person. Lucas Catton is hereby declared a suppressive person on a goldenrod piece of paper, as they call it. But other people who had been declared SPs had posted theirs online. So by then they were no longer allowing people to take their SP declares anymore. So I got to read it, and then she's like, no, you got to give it back to me. And I was like, you don't understand. This is the stupidest thing you could possibly do. I have many friends, and they know that I'm a good person, and I've done nothing but good things. And if you declare me a suppressive person, then they're going to wonder what the hell's going on here. And they're going to know that something else is up, just like I knew something else was up when I saw some of these other people get declared. I was like, you're just perpetuating the same thing. She didn't care. It didn't matter. She's like, well, so, you know how to get back in. You need to do your AD program, and then everything will be fine. And I was like, wow. So I left that meeting. I called a few friends, told them I had been officially declared. They disconnected from me on the spot. And meanwhile, before I got back home in Oklahoma, and I was not working at Narconon at that point, but I lived in Oklahoma. And I got back home, and by then they had already sent faxes out to all the Narconon centers telling them about that I had been declared, and to all of the various Scientology churches that I'd been to, and telling them to tell people in their field that I was declared a suppressive person, that Lucas Catton is now an SP. And just like that, it's like, he's an SP. So suddenly I went from, being valuable to them to being evil to them because I questioned them and I demanded answers. And that's actually what I'm guilty of is I questioned them, I demanded answers, I knew something was wrong, and they didn't like that. And then I communicated about it, and they didn't like that. And so from there on out, I've been a proud suppressive person since I think that was like June or July of 2011. So I'm going on 10 years being an SP now, which is pretty cool. There were times where it was definitely not cool because, as I wrote about, like all of my back then, like my Facebook friends, most of them were Scientologists, and they were like dropping like flies because they sent out the Facebook police to tell everybody, Luke Catton has now been declared. You need to remove him from your friends list. So all these people were dropping like flies. My friends stopped communicating with me. Nobody would do anything. People that I had known by then for, 5, 10, 12 years, they just followed the line because they're like, oh, well, they tell us that you're an SP, so you must be. And it's funny because I used to do the same thing. So I understand the mentality of being blind or being unwilling to see or shutting down your ability to reason and just accepting orders because it's usually done under duress. Just like when I sat down with Marianne Powell and she was like, you're going to do this right now or else. And I'm like, okay. So, but then I realized it was bullshit afterwards. But that's what I did. So that's how I got declared a suppressive person. That's my SP story. If you have been declared a suppressive person, I'd love you to link to this where your SP declare has been posted, or send a response. To share some of that info. There's so many, as I saw on the ex-Scientologist message board once a long time ago. It said there's more people out than in, and that is more so true today, nearly 10 years later, by a landslide. Because not only have there been so many people declared suppressives like me proudly, but there's been a magnitude or a multiple of that who have quietly walked away and just no longer participate. And so everything is crashing in on them, and they continue to deny. They continue to go attack other people who have spoken the truth and shared the truth and spoken out against them, and continue to hide things and continue to punish people and do all these things to try and hold on to the last little bit that they have left, which is still billions of dollars. 3 billion maybe plus real estate portfolio. I don't know what the actual number is, but there's some good estimates out there. And, Miscavige's circle is dwindling continually. The number of Sea Org personnel is dwindling continually. The number of public Scientologists, Joe Blows who pay for services, who show up and do these things, is drastically smaller. Like there's pictures of, empty buildings. They spend all this money on these ideal orgs and they're all empty. They're all empty. Flag is empty. I was recently in Clearwater in September and granted I get it that COVID has a lot of things shut down, but this isn't the same. It doesn't matter. There was other people walking around. There was other people out to dinner. There's other people at shops and at Starbucks and things like that. But there was nobody going in and out of the Scientology buildings. So it is continually a ghost town, and it's dwindling faster and faster. And I'm super proud to be on the right side. And I'm going to continue sharing these stories. And I thought that might be a little bit humorous. I got a couple messages recently from some people, and I was like, yeah, I'll share how I became an SP. And there you go. So now all remaining Scientologists who are still in it are not allowed to talk to me, just like all those who disconnected from me originally, many of whom thankfully have come back and thanked me for speaking out. But there's still a few left, and hopefully one of these days they'll become free as well. And Miscavige and other people will be prosecuted for the actual crimes that they've committed. We have to remove their religious status. We have to prosecute them as a business they are. And I've got some more information coming out in different areas against Narconon, against Scientology. Like I'm 99.9% certain that they have violated a particular federal law, which I'll expound upon a little bit further. So just not in this video. There you go. Take care. Till next time. Lucas Catton.